Okay, welcome to the Shape Up Us Summit, I should say. And this is Helene, and I'm your host. And we have Marisa Wolfson here with us, and she's not only an author. Well, I should probably go backwards. She's not only a documentary creator, she became an author as well, which is pretty incredible. So, Vegucated is the documentary, and the Vegucated Family Table is the book. And let me tell you, I've had some experiences with Marisa now. One, getting her name right took me a little while. It's not Marissa, it's Marisa. And then it's this cute little thing in my head that she had me do. She's like, it's like Lisa, Marisa. And that, like, for a little while in my head, it's exactly how I would say it. So I kind of implore all of you to do the same thing so that we get her name right, which will, make her happy. She'll answer to Marissa, but it's Marisa. So let's understand that. And I've worked with her on the biggest vegan egg hunt ever.
Woo-hoo.
And yes, it's fantastic event that we did. And I will work with her on any event ever. And we're going to, because we're going to build globally plant-based families to bring them together. And we're going to talk about so much stuff today: environment, raising children, the Vegucated family, like the cooking, the recipes that are in there. And it's Earth Day. So happy Earth Day, even though you're seeing this later. It is the 22nd, so it's Earth Day. So we'll talk about the environment as well and how it impacts your children and raising children, health. I mean, there's a whole gamut here of information, but I'm going to throw it at Marisa now so she can share more about who she is, give a little background, and then we'll start our talk.
All right. Thank you, Helene, for the super sweet intro and for getting my name right. Yay, extra points. No, I've had a blast working with you. The biggest vegan egg hunt ever was the first inaugural event for the Plant-Based Kids Club, which Helene runs and which the Vegucated Family Table sponsors and slash co-produces. And it was just so much fun. We had like 65 families join us. It was the day before Easter, but it was a non-denominational, non-religious event where kids had a blast with prizes and special guests and a scavenger hunt for vegan treats in kids' homes. So we're going to have more events like that, and we'll get into that later. But I just want to say I had so much fun working with you, Helene. It's been a blast, and I can't wait to continue our work. So I've sort of been inhabiting the family space. Vegucated came out, oh my gosh, 10 years ago now, which is crazy to think. That was my first baby. And after that was released, I had my son in 2012, and he's 8 now, and I have a daughter who's 5 3/4. That 3/4 is very important. And yeah, I'm raising them vegan. I'm in New York City, where it's super easy to be vegan, but I have friends doing it everywhere, raising kids, including my hometown of Evansville, Indiana. So it can be done anywhere. And yeah, so I've just sort of inhabited that vegan space. And when I was trying to figure out what to feed my kids when they were babies, or my first kid when he was a baby, I was looking for cookbooks and just resources of what to feed him, and there just wasn't anything out there. And I had this idea of like, oh my gosh, well, maybe I could do that. That's the same thing that I thought with my documentary. I was like, oh, I've never done this before. Let me try it. And so by the time I had my daughter, I had hired Laura Delhauer, who's a wonderful chef, to help me in the house, and also to come on as my co-author of our cookbook, The Vegucated Family Table, which came out in the fall. And this is full of recipes and tips for feeding plant-powered babies, toddlers, and little kids. So this is our book. It's weathered and worn, but it's here and it's available wherever books are sold. And I just want to talk about everything to do with raising vegan/plant-based kids.
Oh, that's awesome. And remember, those books are sold on virtualvegfest.com.
Yes, excellent point. And then when you buy from virtualvegfest.com, then you're supporting Helene's wonderful work and all the vegan outreach that she's doing through that.
So clearly there's a little bit of a love fest between us.
Yeah, totally. It's true.
Which is awesome. So let's start with the recipes that you have in the book. How do you get the kids to eat?
The thing is, kids love to eat, but kids, when they're babies, they love to eat just about anything. I mean, they just will eat and eat and eat. I mean, they still have their preferences, but when they become toddlers, that's when it gets tricky. And I remember reading, in the few, in the cookbooks, infant toddler cookbooks that I would find at the library or at the bookstore, they would have like one page that was like, oh, well, kids are too picky, you can't raise them vegan. If you plan to do that, talk to your doctor. Well, doctors, I mean, some of them get maybe an afternoon of nutritional education in medical school. I mean, it's not great. They basically were like, we're not touching this, you know. And so I would be asking my friends, like, what are you doing for food? What are you doing? How are you getting your picky toddler to eat this and that? And we just swapped recipes. And so actually, this isn't just mine and Laura's recipes. We've got recipes from 22 different vegan parents around from all over. I mean, from Sweden to Canada, California, I mean, all over. And we just put them, they're like tried and true recipes, like their best of their go-tos. We put them in this book so that, vegan families can trust that kids like them. And then we actually went ahead and we double tested each recipe on kids, on real kids. So we had like 67 recipe testers, volunteer recipe testers, and no recipes landed in the book that were not consumed and enjoyed. So anything that was gross, we were like, oh, that didn't work. Or we would fine tune it and tweak it. And so what we ended up with was a bunch of super nutritionally dense recipes that kids love, and also tips and tricks of how to deal with choosy toddlers and kids. So yeah.
I like that you called it choosy. I also liked when we were sending the recipes out for the egg hunt, the vegan egg hunt, is that part of the detail was the nutritional value in the recipes
Yeah.
that were shared.
Yes. So, right, exactly. And so I thought, how are we going to engender trust with this book? And how are we going to get parents to feel like, oh my gosh, my kids can thrive on a vegan diet? And so I went to the woman who wrote my sort of vegan pregnancy nutrition Bible called Everything Vegan Pregnancy Book. And that's Dr. Reed Mangels. And she's a registered dietitian who was also an adjunct professor at UMass Amherst, I think, in Massachusetts. And so she has co-written the position papers that the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics wrote on vegetarian and vegan diets for all stages of the life cycle. And so I got her on board to write the nutrition chapter of this book, and also to like highlight certain nutrients in each recipe, so that people will, feel good about, the food that they're giving their kids. So for example, well, let me actually head on over to this position paper, Helene. And actually there are two groups that I want to quote, because, people have looked at the science on this exhaustively. They looked at all of the science on plant-based foods in kids, and they weeded through it and then sort of came to conclusions. And this is, again, the U.S. Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. And they said that an appropriately planned vegetarian, including vegan diets, are healthful, nutritionally adequate, and may provide health benefits for the prevention and treatment of certain diseases. These diets are appropriate for all stages of the life cycle, including pregnancy, lactation, infancy, childhood, adolescence, older adulthood, and for athletes. Plant-based diets are more environmentally sustainable than diets rich in and animal products because they use fewer natural resources and are associated with much less environmental damage. Vegetarians and vegans are at a reduced risk for certain health conditions, including, do you say ischemic heart disease? I can't pronounce it. Type 2 diabetes, hypertension, certain types of cancer, and obesity. Low intake of saturated fat and high intake of vegetables, fruits, whole grains, legumes, soy products, nuts, and seeds, all rich in fiber and phytochemicals, are characteristics of vegetarian and vegan diets that produce lower total and low density lipoprotein, cholesterol levels. Okay, this is boring as all get out, but go to the U.S. Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics Go to eatright.org and look for the paper. Also, the American Academy of Pediatrics weighed in, and they said on their website that eating a plant-based diet can be a beneficial choice for your family. And a vegan diet can be healthy and complete if sources of B12, calcium, zinc, vitamin D, and iron are maximized. In our book, we highlight all of these nutrients, or rather, Dr. Reed Mangels does, and how to source them easily from plants. So we use a lot of chia seeds. We use a lot of seeds and nuts. We do a lot of legumes. We do a lot of, beans. So for example, I'm just gonna go through here. It's some of the favorites that people talk. Okay, so I invented these. These are chocolate cherry chia muffins. Kids love this. And this is all whole foods based. Okay, so we've just got almond flour, spelt flour, we've got a little bit of coconut sugar, but a little bit of maple syrup to make it sweet, but all healthy. We've got fresh cherries in there. And it says, cherries, chocolate, and chia provide a quarter of the iron and zinc your 1 to 3-year-old needs daily, all in one muffin. So, what kid doesn't love a chocolate muffin? And if you're going to give them a treat, it's great to know that they're, nutrient packed as well. Now, lentils are just such a wonderful go-to, right? Look at this beautiful picture. This is Laura's recipe, and a single half cup serving supplies about half the protein and a third of the iron and zinc a toddler needs in a day, and 30% of the vitamin A. So I'm just going to pick out one more just to show you. Let me see. I had some fun breakfast ones in here. Okay, so our white bean wonder waffles. They have navy beans, dried navy beans in them. If you can believe it, and you blend them in your blender, and they provide more than 15% of toddlers' daily calcium and 1/3 of the B12, as long as you provide a fortified soy milk, and then 40% of daily recommendation of protein for toddlers. So really, this is just showing you that these are jam-packed with nutrients, and so parents can, feel really great about feeding their kids these foods.
It's incredibly important that a child's diet be as healthy as possible, because children are being raised, the food is really fueling their future, because it's their foundation for their future body. And the thing that scares me the most is these kids that are being fed fast food and high cholesterol, high fat, high sugar laden diets. You're basically feeding your children diabetes, heart disease, high cholesterol, strokes potential. You're breeding their bodies for disease. So it's incredibly important to create a foundation that's as strong as possible. And that's kind of where you're at with this book, and how you explain the nutrients and the value of the foods that you're feeding them. Because come on, you can be like, here's a cake to your kid, and it's that muffin. You'd be like, but here's cake.
Right. Yeah, right. And we even have a frosting in there that is just coconut cream and maple syrup and vanilla. And that, is a yummy, treat as well. So I love blurring the line between treat and snack a little bit. And this book does that beautifully.
So let's pivot towards.
Eileen, sorry, let's start again. I just want to outline a few of the health impacts that, this generation are dealing with, some of the health challenges.
Okay, so here we go. So Marisa, let's talk about some of the health challenges that are impacting this generation.
Right. So this, unfortunately, generation is the first generation expected to not outlive their parents. In other words, not that they're not going to outlive, but they're going to have a shorter lifespan than their parents. And there are some statistics that are found at healthyschoolfood.org, which is a organization which I love and support. They're the Coalition for Healthy School Food, and they try to get vegetarian and vegan entrees and healthy foods into schools. And they have a fact sheet that I source a lot. And they say 40% of children and teens and 74% of adults are overweight or obese. 50% of children between ages of 2 and 15 already have fatty streaks in their arteries. Literally the early stage heart disease, early stages of heart disease. 7% of children and teens and 11% of adults have high cholesterol. Children as young as 8 years old are being prescribed cholesterol and blood pressure lowering drugs. Type 2 diabetes, which was called adult onset, is becoming increasingly more common in elementary school kids. So, the health problems that we're associating with adults are getting younger and younger and younger. So like we were saying, not only is it important to get the nutrients in their body and keep the bad stuff out, but this is the foundation that we're creating of favorite foods, like taste preferences at this point. And kids who eat vegetables, who have parents eat vegetables, tend to eat more vegetables. Kids whose parents exercise tend to exercise more. So really, you are the number one role model in your kid's life. I mean, you can talk about stuff, oh, you should do this, but really kids are watching you. So when you make these choices in your own life and you bring certain foods and establish certain lifestyle habits in your own home, then those are passed on to your kids. So this is like super foundational stuff. And what's great about, raising your kids vegan is, okay, a lot of American kids grew up with mac and cheese and loving it. I did too. But when they're older, whether they stay vegan or not, they're going to go back to their comfort food, which in our home is a mac-o'-lantern and cheese. That's a pumpkin-based, cheesy sauce, or baked potatoes with baked beans. And so their comfort foods are like, they don't have any cholesterol. They don't have, they're not going to raise their blood pressure. It's just healthier foundational stuff. So that is one of the many benefits of even just raising your kids vegan, because like anything, we can't control what our kids are going to do as much as we would love to all the time, or even when they're older, but just setting the foundation for healthy habits is what we're supposed to do right now. And we can do, especially now that there's so many wonderful products and resources available.
No, I couldn't agree more. That foundation, for those of us who didn't grow up with that foundation, we've taken those comfort foods from childhood and made them plant-based.
Yeah. And that's been fun too. That's super fun to see what people do with that. I mean, I'm half German, and I veganized Spätzle, which is a Southern German specialty. And my kids love it. And it's so fun to be able to, veganize your favorites and pass those along as well.
So your kids and the other families that you know of who are raising their children plant-based/vegan, what's it like to raise a vegan plant-based child?
Yeah. So, I mean, well, first of all, you have your ideas of how you're going to parent, and then you have the reality. And I think a lot of parents can relate to this. It's like, oh, I'm not going to do screen time, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do that. And then the pandemic too, it's just like, oh God. So I think we all need to be kind to ourselves and, have compassion for ourselves as parents and individuals. But I will say, it's wonderful in that it's wonderfully rewarding. I came to veganism when I was 26 years old, and I'm looking back at all the harm that I had done to the environment and to animals, and through 26 years of eating animals. And I just really wish that I hadn't, and so it's interesting from a perspective now, looking back in the past of, what our relationship is to the rest of the people in the world and so forth. So, you look back at your ancestors who have made some crazy choices. Mine have too. I mean, not crazy. They were a product of their time, but it's nice to not to try to not raise your kids who are just a product of their time, but to intentionally and consciously raise them as citizens of the world who are going to have to live in the world that we created, that they created, so they're going to find out about factory farming, and they're going to have to deal with climate change, and just them knowing now that they've been a part of the solution from the beginning is going to be really satisfying and meaningful to them. and just teaching them that their choices matter, how they interact with the world matters. But beyond that, heady sort of philosophical level, I am super privileged, to have the resources that I do and to live in New York City. So I can't speak for everyone, and I'm not even going to try. But I find it, pretty easy. I think I've been doing it for, 18 years. So it was just basically how we live. But what's really important, I find, is to surround yourself with like-minded folks and connect with other vegan parents. I have running text threads with vegan moms, and so that's really great. But the kids, they're happy. This is what they know. I've never had one tantrum at a birthday party or, a holiday or at school around, oh, I can't have this, I can't have that, which is not to say that some kids don't, but so many of the fears that I had around this have not come to pass. And that's really nice to see.
I feel like the reason why that is the communication you probably have with your children about why you're doing what you're doing, the impact of what you're doing, and the importance of it, but not on the like we would talk about it is very different from how you've probably spoken to your children about it.
Right.
Can you share at what point you did speak to them and what you said?
Sure. So I very much take it on a as needed basis. Like, as kids ask questions, I will answer them. And I don't, beat around the bush. I will be clear, but I don't sit there and show them graphic videos. I haven't done that yet, actually, even though they're 5 and 8. Actually, I think my 5-year-old could handle it better than my 8-year-old. So really, that depends on the kids. I wouldn't give an age limit. Oh, at this age, you can do that. It really depends on you. It really depends on your kid. But yeah, just early on, I said, I think, our animals are our friends and we don't eat our friends, and I would say, well, that meat comes from an animal. And they're a little bit in a bubble. They go to school with, all non-vegans except for them in their class. But so they see the meat in the food, but when we're in the store and they see it all packaged up, they're like, that's animals. I'm like, yeah. And they're kind of freaked out, yeah. So, I talk about it. They know about chickens and, slaughter. We have some really great books that have helped explain things. I wish I don't have time to show you all of them, but Ruby Roth is the queen of vegan children's literature. She's so talented. This is her beautiful illustrative work. So she's a beautiful artist as well as author. So this is a book that explains vegan, the lifestyle, it's also a philosophy. It's not just a diet. So animal rights vegans, don't go to zoos either, for example, although there's some, debate and flexibility within the families of whether kids are allowed to go on zoo school trips, but that's another topic. Anyway, so, we talk, so here's beautiful introductions to just basically how we want to, here's health. And then there's, environmental stuff too. So we see the meat here, right? And we see it hanging, but it's not, we're not seeing anyone being actually slaughtered, but this is the truth. Kids are going to find out about it eventually. So we'd rather kids just be raised with their eyes open. And pollution, talking about the pollution and how it's affecting sea life. Here's chapter on organic. So she's got some great books. And then there are other books that just present animals as someone and not something. This is a super cute book, Esther the Wonder Pig. She's a celebrity. If you don't know about her, go to her website, estherthewonderpig.com, I think. And there's some great illustrations just about her dads. That's another thing I love about this book is she has 2 dads. So we're talking about diverse families here. And the kids love this, but they just think it's so funny because it's a funny story. And then Maya Gottfried wrote Our Farm. So these are poems from the perspective of farm animals. And then we also have some books that celebrate plant foods. So this is something, so kids are more food literate, that's another thing is we don't fully expect kids to eat all of our adult food. And I to be honest with you, I get really jealous when I see on Instagram, people are like, my kid is eating this super sophisticated dish. And I'm like, oh, I wish my kids would eat that. But the point is, you have to just keep exposing them to stuff and to improve their culinary literacy so they even know what it is. And so books like this help them with that too, just exposing them to different healthy plant foods.
Yeah, that's if I had grown up in a vegan household, I would have probably been exposed to that gourmet food. I was the other way. I was exposed to gourmet food, but all animal based.
Yeah, that's funny. I mean, my mom was a great cook, but she was, in the Midwest and she's German. And so that's the kind of food that I got. But that's great that you're exposed to fancy food. I mean, I expose my kids, they don't necessarily eat it all, but they're exposed and they try it. So that's the important thing is exposure, exposure, exposure with kids.
Right, and support and understanding and building their palates. You're
Yeah,
right. If you feed a kid junk, they're going to grow up to eat junk food.
right.
If you feed
Which
a
is not
kid
to
fruits and
say that there's
veggies.
not a place for that. I mean, I think there is a place on Halloween, on, if you want to do that, or on, Easter, or, Hanukkah, if you want to have some
Birthdays.
or birthdays. Exactly. I mean, I've got a recipe in here for birthday cupcakes that are divine, and it is pretty much garbage. I mean, it's not total garbage because, I mean, there's no cholesterol, but I mean, these are so cute. But they're a basic nut-free cupcake that, is going to win over kids just by tasting delicious. And this is a white chocolate buttercream frosting. So I think there's a place for treats for sure. But, the foundational foods that kids grow up with should be health promoting.
Oh, definitely. So, do you talk to the kids about the environment? Are they learning about the environment in school?
Yeah, so today my son is doing a park cleanup, which is great in Riverside Drive. They're just going to be like weeding and taking, picking up trash and stuff. And we talk about it a lot. And we talk about climate change a lot because that is, their eyes need to be open with regard to that. And so that we can make changes now. This is the window of opportunity. I mean, I really don't want our future generations to look back at us, the way that we look back at our parents and grandparents and say, how are you complicit in the system that oppressed so many people? We want to be open and forthcoming with the children. But I think what really helps the kids deal with this crisis just mentally and emotionally is knowing that they're part of the solution and feeling proactive. So yes, they will learn about it. Yes, they will experience the effects of it, tragically, some more than others. But as long as they take ownership of it and take action and see themselves as part of the solution, A, maybe we can find a solution, and B, we won't have to deal with the climate anxiety and angst that so many of us are dealing with. It won't be as, profound. So Biden, he proposed these cuts for greenhouse gas emissions today. That's very exciting. But what most people don't realize is that one of the number one ways to reduce your carbon footprint, or your food print, as I like to say it, your climate change food print, is by going to a plant-based diet. I mean, you can look at all of the top environmental problems of our time. I mean, methane comes from pigs, cows, sheep, and that is, gosh, how much stronger than, I mean, I'm forgetting the stats. They're all in my documentary, but there's like so much stronger in terms, I think, in terms of their climate change. Let me re-edit this. Let me do this over again. What is that stat? I'm trying to think. What is it with methane? Is it 300 times stronger?
I'm actually looking on my Facebook right now because it's Earth Day and there's
Yeah,
been
I'm
there's
sure.
been stuff posted.
Yeah.
So obviously edit this. Actually, meat eating production contributes to leveling of 80% of Amazonian rainforest, wasting of 15 trillion gallons of water per year, producing 130 times as much waste as that of the entire population, killing 59 billion animals every year.
Yeah, right.
You've got that.
Okay, so it's 30 times more powerful than carbon dioxide, methane.
It's the biggest producer of the impact of our climate is animal agriculture, and anything else, including all transportation, and all transportation would include buses, trains, ships, every piece of airplanes, everything, every piece of transportation doesn't equal the amount of impact on our environment, on our climate as animal agriculture does.
Right. So there are a lot of governmental organizations, including the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, that have come out with statements of just how devastating animal agriculture is. So farm animals produce methane, which is 30 times stronger of a greenhouse gas than CO2, but it cycles out of the atmosphere much faster. So CO2 sits around the atmosphere for like 100 years. Methane, it's only like 10 years. So if we made like a huge shift over the next 10 years with regard to our consumption of animal foods, we could get rid of so much of the methane, which traps so much more heat. Also nitrous oxide that comes from farm animals, and that's like 400 times stronger, or 300 or 400 times stronger of greenhouse gas. So they're just, the conversation should be about cars and emissions and that kind of thing, but this diet change requires no major infrastructure bill, really. I mean, what would be great is if the subsidies were taken away, obviously, from the animal industries and maybe given towards the more sustainable industries. That would be great. Or even just taking away the subsidies would even the playing field, and people would know what the true cost of meat is and dairy. I mean, dairy is just, cheese is concentrated dairy. So yeah, I mean, from water pollution to air pollution to soil degradation, animal agriculture is right at the top. So there is no greater change you can make for Earth Day or any day, and for your future generations, than moving towards a plant-based diet.
And here's a quote: "We do not inherit the earth from our ancestors, we borrow it from our children." And that's from it's a Native American proverb. So let's just all remember that when it comes to how we're raising children and our impact on the planet every single day. And you're right, Meatless Monday, changing all your lunches to plant-based, just taking those steps, those baby steps forward. Every single time you do that, you make a difference in saving our planet. No, you don't have to go vegan or plant-based 100% tomorrow, but if you take the steps towards it, you actually are making a difference for our planet and for the future generations on this planet.
And if your kids, are not vegan or vegetarian now, you don't have to say, well, that's that. Well, they're never going to do it, and that's not going to happen. Well, like we said before, I mean, they learn, that, remember from the 80s, there was that drug commercial, you, Dad, I learned it from watching you. Remember the drug, like there was some anti-drug PSA, and they learned from watching us. And so, so I had this one salad that I was in love with, and I ate it all the time. It was my nanny and I ate it all the time. She's a part-time nanny. She's wonderful. She's from Columbia. She makes the best food. And she and I would eat that salad, and my daughter had no interest in it. And then finally one day, after seeing us eat it so many times, she said, can I have a bite? And we gave her a bite. Oh my God. And now she wants a little bowl of that salad. So it's so cute. Sprinkling pumpkin seeds on your oatmeal. Kids are like, oh, what's that? Like, oh, those are sprinkles, or chia seeds. We have a whole chapter about sprinkles in there, like, which have chia seeds and goji berries and dried coconut, and we have savory sprinkles and sweet sprinkles, and ways to just like add nutrition to kids' food. So if they see you sprinkling something fun on your food, they're say, well, I want something fun. So it's that kind of a thing. And also just showing kids just how many vegan foods they're already eating and they don't even know it. Pasta marinara. They won't even notice if you like blend some lentils in it too for protein. They won't even know. I mean, especially baked goods like smoothies, muffins, pancakes, don't even know they're vegan. So you don't have to tell them. You don't even have to tell them they're vegan. You can just say, oh, here's this. And then they'll look, oh, they won't even know. And then later when they say, well, I don't know about vegan food, you say, well, the pancakes that mommy makes and the daddy, the thing that daddy makes and the thing that blah, 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 that's all vegan and you like it. PBJs, bean burritos. So it's all little bit by little bit.
What's in that salad?
what is it? It's a seasoning that she uses. It's a special seasoning packet that she uses, but it's just like vinegar, lemon juice, and then she does cilantro in there, tomatoes, cucumbers, spinach. I don't know. It's her magic.
It sounds incredible. It's so cool that your daughter wanted to try it and now wants it too. I mean, that's really, it's exactly what the whole theme of this has been. As parents, as adults, you are the examples for the children, and not just your own children, for other people's children as well. Your aunts, uncles, grandma, grandpa, because you are that example. So, and kids do look up to people they admire and love. And that's the difference, that your
And I
daughter looked at
have
you.
some classmates who want to go vegan. Like my son's classmate Liam says he wants to go vegan. And so his mother bought the book and she's trying stuff out. And my daughter Emmy's classmate Owen, he decided on his own to become vegetarian. And then now he's cutting out dairy. And so they can bond over that, the two of them. So it's nice. And then obviously we do, play dates. Well, with COVID, it's hard, but we do play dates with our vegan friends. And then we have our virtual events that we're going to create, which are so much fun. Do you want to tell people about the Topia world and about that kind of a thing?
Yeah, the Topia world is this really cool world that the Bee Leaf Retreat that Amanda created is sponsoring. And it's a virtual world where the kids can go and hang out as these little, what are they called?
Little avatars,
Avatars. Yeah.
little people, and they just walk around the world. And then if they get to another person, so we did this after the egg hunt, vegan egg hunt, and then their little camera pops up and they talk to each other. So we had kids talking from, what is it? Portugal, I think Baltimore or something, Brooklyn, Upper West Side. So we were just meeting little kids. It was super cute. So we're going to keep doing that. We're going to do a pajama party. We want to do a vegan family game night, and always with an opportunity to meet other vegan families so that kids don't feel so alone. Maybe they don't have a vegan friend in the neighborhood or in their community, but at least they do can relate to kids online. That's really important.
So I'm kind of curious about the kids that are making the decisions to go vegan or vegetarian, and the parents are not. So what's the reaction? Like, I'm sure you're hearing from parents whose children are coming back and saying, well, now my child wants to eat this way, but we don't. But the children are young, so they can't just throw them in the kitchen and go cook for
Right.
yourself. That happened to me. But most parents don't throw your kids in the kitchen at 8 years old and say, you want to be vegan? Be vegan.
Right. So I have a friend whose son wants to be vegan, and she doesn't cook at all. So she's trying, but she's just like, he really wants to, and I'm like, then do it. It's so funny. Okay, so this is my bias, but people say I don't cook, I can't cook, and to me, maybe it's just because of my personality. I'm like, well, you never know how to do anything until you do it. You know what I mean? I didn't know how to write a book. I didn't know how to make a movie. You learn by doing. So, I think really the issue is I don't want to cook, which is also fair, but you've got wonderful, restaurants. I mean, COVID, it's tricky, but all ethnic food, pretty much, except for like French cuisine, but you've got Asian food, you've got Indian food, you've got, African food. So very little of it actually has dairy, so you can go that route. And then there's another kid the kid in Emmy's class. I think his mom was vegan, and she got pregnant and just got nervous and freaked out and just started eating meat and animal products again. But now that she sees that her son is really open to it, she's going back to being vegan too. So it's something that they're doing together, which is beautiful. Yeah, it's beautiful.
No, I agree. And I can imagine being someone that gave up red meat at 15 years old, and my family like was like, this isn't going to last. And obviously it has lasted,
Right.
but then it was up to me to cook my food
Mhm.
for myself and for others in my family if they wanted it. But I grew up with the gene of being able to cook. And that really helps when
Yeah.
it comes to any choices of what you want to put on your plate. And you live in a city where everything can be delivered. Ice
Yeah.
cream is delivered.
Yeah.
everything is delivered. So we kind of have to think outside the box of the places we live where people can get stuff at their fingertips. I'd
Right.
really like to focus as we start to close out on helping families that don't live in urban areas, that
Yeah.
live in the areas where you can't really
Yeah.
get stuff, where fast food is the most prevalent thing in the world, and how we can change that, because I think that's the piece of this puzzle that really needs to be impacted
Hmm.
over like the urban and more suburban areas.
Absolutely. And even, right. And even in the urban areas, I mean, when I first went vegan, I was living in Harlem, in Spanish Harlem. And I mean, the nearest Whole Foods was 50 blocks away. There, it was not a thing. Like it was, and the health food store that was near me was so expensive. I mean, I think worse than Whole Foods even. I mean, it was just so, I couldn't afford it. I was making like no money, working at a little nonprofit. So I just was sinking further and further into debt. It was so hard. So I have so much sympathy for folks who have that challenge. Also, I'm from Evansville, Indiana, and um, there are, few options there. It's a city, but it's a small city, and there's finally one vegan restaurant, which is great, but obviously can't eat out all the time. So um, one resource that I've found joining the Vegans of Evansville Facebook group is people post sales like locally. They'll say, "Hey, there's a sale on this and that at Costco right now," or "There's this and that is at whatever, like pretty mainstream supermarket. There's a sale on soy milk or whatever." And so we kind of let each other know like where the specials are. And my friend Christine Byer, who runs that group, she is amazing. She budgets everything out for the week and just buys according. She was one of my recipe testers, and she buys everything, for the week. And is a planner. You kind of have to plan. It's hard to find food that's fast and easy and cheap. It's really hard to find those three. Now there is a new book out by Sam Turnbull called Fast, Cheap, and Easy Vegan or something like that. Have you heard of that one? Did you hear that one?
I haven't, but what a great name.
Yeah, it's like vegan, fast, easy, cheap vegan or something. And it is all supermarket friendly foods. Um, you know, so I would say join your local Facebook group. Follow some of the like cheap vegan eats accounts on Instagram. People are posting recipes, they're posting hacks. And it's no joke. I mean, it is going to be more expensive. I'm sorry, it is. I know people say, oh, you can do rice and beans. Yeah, you can. You're going to get sick of rice and beans. And if you're going to do this right, it, you got to invest time or money into it. And that's just the truth of it.
Yeah, it becomes really difficult that fruits and vegetables can be more expensive, but you don't have to buy organic.
Right.
You can purchase fruits and vegetables. I mean, a red pepper can be as inexpensive as $1.99 or less for one pepper, and that could feed two people a couple of times, depending on what else you put into a salad or a pasta or making your own sauce. You could
Also
buy,
frozen foods. People
yes.
have this idea that frozen food is not good or it's not fresh, and that's not true because they're often flash frozen. I mean, they are frozen fresh. So you just throw them in a soup or a stew or a smoothie, and that's just as good, if not better than a wilted something in your fridge. So obviously, joining a local co-op is great. But again, you're investing your time where you have to, work a few hours a month or something, do a shift. But thankfully there are more and more Aldis. Aldi is a great supermarket for vegan specials, and Trader Joe's if you're lucky to have a Trader Joe's in town. So definitely there are tips and tricks to making it more affordable.
No, I agree with you. A Misfits Market and all the other ones that are like them that have the produce that they get and they can send you a box of something for $35. And you could do that once a month or twice a month. And then hopefully they service the market that you're in, local farmers markets, and Frozen, agree 100%. Like I said, you don't have to buy organic, and now you're looking at a bag of spinach for 99 cents, if it's not organic. And you can easily put that in stir fries, in tofu scrambles, in vegan egg omelets.
That's right.
There's so many things, and spinach is an incredible superfood because Popeye eats it. So I mean, all kids should be eating it because Popeye eats it. And so probably not relevant. That's just our childhood.
That's our childhood. That's okay. That's okay. Yeah, we have a really great Neverland smoothie in the book, which all kids we have. Oh, I have a little video actually. If you go to our YouTube channel, and you can see, or even on our Instagram, it's up there. But you see these little kids. She doesn't like green smoothies, and she's just her name is Isla, and she's just sucking up this smoothie because it's got mango in it and orange juice, and it's just so good. So yeah, so there are ways of doing spinach and smoothies that are. Oh, we also have a perfect first green juice, which kids love because it's filled with pineapple. There's something about pineapple that just makes it so sweet and delicious. But I'm getting off on a tangent. But yeah, even canned pineapple is, you can use canned pineapple that's cheaper. Frozen spinach is cheaper. So yeah, there are definitely ways to get around that.
Yeah, just limit the fat and the sugar intakes. It doesn't mean eliminate, it means limit. And moderation is the key thing to raising healthy children and being healthy adults as well. Doesn't mean you're not going to eat, that cake, but don't eat that cake every day.
Right.
So, Marisa, thank you so much for being a part of this. I want to give you like the last 30 seconds, minute to say whatever you want to say to close this out. And really, thank you for being part of this. You're absolutely incredible, and hope everyone goes to virtualvegtrust.com, purchases the Vegucated Family Table, goes on to let us know where Vegucated is now on so people can watch it. Because I think, pretty sure I watched it on Netflix, but I'm not sure if it's still there. And whatever else you want to share.
Oh, thank you. No, I just want to say that, at the end of the day, sometimes I forget that I'm the parent. I mean, I'm not, I don't try to raise my kids in like an authoritarian way at all. With sort of the sweet spot is this authoritative place where you have high expectations and high compassion for your kids. And so I think what changing your diet does, or changing their diet does, and teaching them about it, is to just raise the expectations a little bit. And you don't have, it doesn't be this crazy overwhelming thing, but just, okay, you know what, we're going to do better. We're going to do a little bit better, and we're going to start doing this and that and this and that. And studies have shown that there's not a ton of science on the process of going vegan, but the science that is there is showing that gradual tends to be more long lasting, which makes sense, right? It's more sustainable. So really, the small changes over time, they add up. When we think about, oh, all the things I can't have, or my kids I shouldn't eat, don't worry about it. Don't even think about it. Try to crowd out that stuff with good things. So, involving your kids, you see that on all the accounts, involve your kids, involve your kids. Well, not everyone has time to involve their kids in the cooking process every night. I'm sorry, but we don't. But if you find a book that, and it doesn't have to be mine, whatever vegan cookbook you have that has, beautiful pictures, appetizing pictures, and they will look through and they'll say, oh, mommy, can I, and okay, it might be sweets, right? Because we're kids, but it might be a yummy pizza crust, felt pizza crust or whatever, but like, or, a fun sprinkle. Here's some of the sprinkles that we have. Getting them involved in having a sense of agency to just even try one of these things goes a long way. So tempt them with their eyes, right? Make stuff that's really beautiful. Kids love shapes. I mean, this sounds so cheesy, and I roll my eyes at these Instagram accounts that with this perfect cute food, I'm like, oh, please, who has time for that? But really, if you get a few good cookie cutters and you turn something into something cute and you involve them in the process, then even those small things can end up going quite a long way. And I'm available if anyone has questions, Marisa at getvegucated.com. I'm happy to chat and even just, troubleshoot whatever's going on.
And what's awesome is now we're going to have a 15-minute live Q&A. So if you have any questions or if you have any comments, please let us know and we'll definitely answer them. And that part is actually going to be live and not part of this recording. So we're just going to say that now. So we will definitely take your questions. And thank you again for joining us at the Shape Up Us Summit. We're really glad that you're here, and we hope that you raise healthy, plant based children.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Colleen. Thanks for watching.